Welcome to the Indian Sun. I'm Indira Laisram. My guest today is Parvyn, a Punjabi Australian singer best known for her work in the cult psychedelic band the Bombay Royale. She's been performing globally since childhood with her father, Dya Singh. As a frontwoman of the Bombay Royale, Parvyn has played to crowds all across Europe and the US, including the Webster Hall in New York and the Kennedy Center in DC. Her current solo project represents a new step in her career. Let's talk to Parvyn about a fantastic career and the WOMAD Festival, where she joins other artists for its 30th birthday. Thank you so much for your time with the Indian Sun this afternoon. Parvyn, you've had such an enriching childhood. I mean, nobody can boast of such a childhood as yours. You've performed in Michael Jackson. You grew up under the wings of your father, Dya Singh, who is a larger-than-life figure. And when I last spoke to you in 2018, I remember you were working on your solo album, which has reached fruition this September. It's come out. We'll talk about that later. But in between 2018 and now, what have you missed out on? Can you share anything interesting to start with, the conversation?
Well, I'm a mother now, which is always like an exciting part of life, and to be able to finish my record during COVID and lockdown was a thing that it was very challenging, but I managed to do it, and it's here, and it's been so fulfilling to be able to finally have this music out.
Your debut album, Saar, this was launched in September, right? Now, you know that. Yeah, and we know that your music is informed by, your Sikh background, classical Indian music, jazz, etc. Can you tell us what went into the making of the music? And I also know that you reflected on mental health in that album. So can you elaborate?
I think this has been the first opportunity where I've been able to really tell my own story. And so going through motherhood, going through my life as a young person growing up in Australia with a very strong connection to my Punjabi and Sikh culture, but then growing up in the Western world where English has been my first language, but musically, my language has been Indian melodic music and rhythm. So I wanted to bring the songwriting of what is I'm comfortable in expressing myself, which is English, but to the medium of Indian style music. So I really brought together those two worlds, and I wanted to be authentic in telling my story. I've had mental health issues in the past, and I just wanted to be able to be really honest in my experience of life until this point.
And can you also explain, for our audience, what the meaning of the album is?
Saar is to breathe, Saar. And it's also Saar is the first note of the Indian melodic scale, Sa Re Ga Ma Pa Da Ni Sa. So this is my first album. It's where I started. So that's where Saar came from.
Let's talk about the WOMAD Festival. I know you performed in 1992 as a child, and this time you're performing for the second time as an adult. What are you bringing to the festival this time?
So I'm going to be presenting with a 6-piece band with Vinod Prasanna on bansuri, and then I've got drums and keyboard, bass and guitar. It's, like I said, my own style of music. So back in 1992, like you said, I performed with Dya Singh, and I remember seeing at that point Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan was there that year, and also Sheila Chandra. So it was one of the first festivals that I really saw our music being performed on a large scale stage in front of the general population. So it has had a massive impact in my life. And then when I performed with the Bombay Royale, which was my big 12-piece band, that was an amazing experience again. But now to be able to bring my own project as Parvyn to the stage is a very, very exciting prospect for me. And I'm going to be bringing everything that I've learned over the last 30 years being involved in the industry and fine-tuning my skills to this show.
So interesting. Now, as front woman of, Australia's most loved band, Bombay Royale, what has been your journey like? You've performed all over the world, at some of the most noted arenas. Tell us about your experience.
I remember first meeting the other members of the Bombay Royale, who were all part of the Melbourne sort of funk and jazz musical scene. So they were all non-Indians. And I came into this little room in a warehouse in Brunswick, a suburb in Melbourne, and they were all playing the songs that I remember listening to on record back when I was a child. So things like Asha Bhosle and Lata Mangeshkar, Dam Maro Dam, Ye Mera Dil, those sorts of songs. And I thought, this is so crazy. How is there a group of non-Indians that have come together to play this music? And so I think being a part of that music, it made me really appreciate and be proud of the culture that I have come from, and that it's not just Indians and South Asians that enjoy this music. It's a type of music that can cross all barriers, and it's fun, especially that vintage Bollywood sound. So it was really a very liberating experience for me, something where I could be proud of even the cultural dress. I would wear saris when I performed, and singing in Hindi and Bengali and Punjabi to audiences that were a very cross-cultural blend of audiences. Also, with that band, I was playing a character. So the character I had in that band was the mysterious lady. And so because I was acting in that role, it really gave me the opportunity to be a larger-than-life character. And so it kind of took away my own personal sort of tendency, which is I'm quite shy, I'm quite personal and private in my life. But then because I was acting to be the mysterious lady, that gave me the opportunity to really just let loose on stage and express myself in a very flamboyant type of way. And that has then now helped me into be able to be more of that in my own personal life.
Yeah, and your influence in the music scene is huge. I mean, in the sense that now we have people know about you, people talk about your music. Now, how can the industry do better at, providing a platform for, say, Indian or brown singers or artists?
Yeah, I think that there is really a push with things like government arts funding, which if you have a culturally diverse, they call it, if you come from a culturally diverse or linguistically diverse background, that is a tick in being able to help you get funding. And so I think it's more about telling brown musicians and artists that there is funding available, and to really try and apply for those arts funding and grants, because there is definitely a push within the industry, and there is the knowledge that there has been less representation within the arts industry of people from Asian and brown cultures. So I think it's mostly telling the artists that these opportunities are available, and if you want to have help in getting that funding, contact people like me. I will be there to help you. I really want to be part of increasing the representation of South Asian culture in this country. And I want to connect communities and artistic communities together. So that's a really big passion of mine going forward as well.
And in terms of Bombay Royale, what are your future projects?
So the Bombay Royale has finished playing.
Okay. So you're not going to resume it all? Is that what you say?
We'll see. We'll see. We'll see what happens in the future. But I think my main focus is this solo project, my solo Parvyn work.
Yeah.
And I am enjoying my life as a mother as well. So I'm kind of, trying to enjoy being a mother, being a wife, but also making sure that I keep working at my artistic practice. And so I think it's going to be a part of my life forever. And I'm just going to kind of see where this album takes me. It's already had a really great response from all over the world. And so I'm hoping to tour more in that project and develop my style a little bit more. I'm also getting into production, collaborating with film directors and dance choreographers as well. So I'm going to be working more in the production side of things and really honing in my skills to be able to perform by myself, but also to be able to make the whole music of soundtrack as well.
That's so lovely. Now, how do you find your voice as a songwriter?
That has been a real struggle because I have, for a very long time, either sung Gurbani Kirtan with my dad, which, I was trained and guided into how I should do that music and the tonal qualities that I would get out of this. And then I went to Bollywood music, which was a very sort of high-pitched, more nasal-sounding tone. But then also alongside, I would sing pop and jazz and blues. So I've kind of really been, I remember one of my teachers in India, because I go to Ahmedabad to study Kathak and Khayal, and one of my teachers, who's now passed away, Atul Desai, he was saying that there are 3 stages of a singer. First, you are a monkey. You just do what you're told to do. Then you are a parrot, and you imitate all of your favorite singers. And so you really try and listen, and then you imitate their voices exactly. Then the 3rd stage is when you become a peacock. And that is when you find your voice, and it's through repetition, it's through riyaz, it's through practice that you finally find your own tone and your own voice.
And now that you're foraying onto your own, and you've come out with your debut album, what are the inspirations that you sort of draw from?
One of my inspirations is very strong female personalities within the music industry. People from Beyonce, who is one of the top of the pop industry, to people like Björk, who does very experimental music and is very forward in the way that she expresses herself, both visually but then also audibly as well. So I think my main inspiration is from artists who do whatever they want to do, not to copy people, but to express themselves authentically and to just be yourself, to tell your story. And there is a certain element of kind of risk that you have to take sometimes when it's like it's not the common thing to do or the common sound, but I just really am inspired by people who wedge their own path and to just try things that they feel like doing, whatever they're inspired to do from all aspects of life. So I'm really inspired by artists who just go their own path and do whatever it is that they really deep down feel like they have to do. That's what it is like for me. I felt like there was a style of music which incorporated the English, but then also the Indian music and electronic and jazz, and I couldn't find that anywhere, and I had it in my head. And so then for me, it was my responsibility to actually make that music that I wanted to hear, which was the driving passion for this project, and for getting this album out was just something that I felt like I had to do, because mostly I wanted to hear this music. It was in my head and I couldn't find it anywhere else, so I just had to make it myself.
Lovely. I'm curious as to who you're listening to these days.
I listen to from Doja Cat, who is a great pop star from the US, to Kaushiki Chakrabarti. She is definitely someone that I always go back to. She's a North Indian classical singer, Ajoy Chakrabarti's daughter. She is daily I listen to her mostly is Golshiki, but then yes, with the flick of Doja Cat and SZA and Alicia Keys as well. Like I like a very broad range.
Yeah, that's a range of taste. But I guess for any artist, that's the key to absorbing the best of every sound and genre and all that, isn't it? What next? Now you've come on to the second album. This first album, I know it was a big one. So are you working on the second, or is it too early?
I have books and books of songs that I've been working on for the past decade. So there is a lot of material there. Obviously, this first album, I've selected a bunch of songs that felt like they fit together. But there were several songs that I had made that didn't actually make it onto the album, which I will then be pushing on to the next record. So I think I'm constantly, part of my artistic practice is songwriting, and that's part of how my journal keeping and my diary, I do that in song. Like that's my poetry is through song. And so once this album is finished and I have my album launch, which is happening in February at the Malthouse Outdoor stage in Melbourne, so that's Feb 3, and then WOMAD will be happening in March, and there's the National Folk Festival. So there's a bit of touring that's happening at the beginning half of 2022. Once that kind of finishes, then I'll get back into the studio. I've just moved back to Adelaide from Melbourne, so I'm setting up a new space, a new studio where I can start really working on those skills of production and working on the next record. And I think because of COVID, I haven't had the opportunity to perform these songs live on stage. So I guess I'm waiting to see what response audiences have with my music and which way that will then direct me on where to go to next in my career.
So wonderful. Thank you so much for talking with us, and we'll catch you soon again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Indira.